Are there any members tonight who wish to declare a declaration of interest on any item on tonight's agenda, please?
No, either medium or high.
No, thank you very much. I don't know what that was. So, item number 3, minutes of the Town Council meeting of the 14th of September 2020. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Lucas, seconder, please. Councillor Cockett, thank you very much indeed. And the Planning Committee of the 15th of September for information only. Moving to number 4 on the agenda, the finance report. The clerk, please.
Thank you, Chair. The standard format for this counting date is the 30th of September. And at that date, the balance on the Town Council's funds was 325,149. And the reconciliation of both bank accounts to that date has been completed. Payments during September came to a total of £30,396, with 2,335 of that coming from the Salisbury Gardens account. Receipts during September totaled 7,394, with 6,025 of that coming from the Salisbury Gardens rent for the month. Finally, the year-to-date variances against the preset budget showed that the payments up for the what's now the first 6 months of the financial year during that month came to £23,943 under budget, with receipts £769 less than budget. And that's the report for that month, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm muted. Any members like to ask anything of the clerk in respect of the finance report?
No.
No? Could I have a proposer that the report be accepted, please?
I propose that, Stuart.
Councillor Toogood, thank you. A seconder? Councillor Logan, thank you very much indeed. Which brings us to item number 5 on the agenda, which is land in Upper Ventnor. You have report 77-20 in front of you, with the recommendation at the end of it. Who would like to open on this?
So, Chair, I'm happy to open on this. So I've had a look through it and I've read all the other papers for this evening's meeting, of course. And in light of the other papers, it seems quite clear to me that Ventnor needs to somewhat go it alone. And on that basis, I'm happy for the Town Council to spend £1,000 here, and grateful that the Isle of Wight Council is actually at least going to pony up 50% of the £2,000 required for this survey. It's a bit difficult. We seem to be spending £1,000 here, 2,000 there, 3,000 there on different surveys and other matters. But I don't see that we have a lot of choice when we are going to be quite dependent on pioneering things like this autonomously.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Coggett. I agree with you there. It would seem that we have, as a council and as part of the ASWG group in the past, on several occasions, discussed this land in Upper Ventnor, which is quite substantial and could represent quite an investment opportunity for the council, and depending on what route we decide to go down in its development. Would anybody else like to speak to this?
I'm just wondering, do we have any borrowing capacity, David, to take on these sort of things if we had to go it alone? with the toilet that we've got in the stops as well?
Chair, if I can respond to that, the answer is not for this project, because the development is likely will be in the millions, and
Right.
we can't borrow from the Public Works Loan Board to that level unless you want to risk a bank loan with security of the councillors' homes as security. But I wouldn't advise that, councillor.
No, thank you.
And with that very kind of advice, I think if you were to offer it, David, I don't think many of us around this virtual table will take up that particular offer, even at these very low interest rates. Anybody else like to speak to this?
Well, I don't know if you remember, but Mrs. Taylor, in the deep and dark past, wanted to build an oldie shop.
Are you talking about Val Taylor, Julian?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
No,
You know,
right, okay. No, I didn't know that, no.
her of the glittering career. Yeah, but it ain't a bad idea, I suppose, if they can get some money to build a dark playground for the kids. Plus a shop, of course. It would certainly do a great deal for Upper Ventnor.
Delia has not the access for that sort of thing to go on up there, really. It's a quite a tight site. So whatever industrial units we look at need to be small. You're not going to get big vehicles at all. So
No.
it is a very, very tight site.
Yeah, I think that's why Tesco's ran away in the end, didn't they?
Okay. You're not going to get anything heavy out there at all.
Well, we could have a ski lift. How about that?
Being silly now.
No, I'm not. I'm being very clever, actually. We could have a ski slope up there. I mean, there's lots of things. We just have to think sideways, you know?
I'd like to second that you at least support a survey with £1,000.
Thank you, Councillor Milford. So we have a proposal from Councillor Cockett that we support the halving of the survey fee of £2,000 with Isle of Wight Council, which would mean VTC's apportionment being £1,000, seconded by Councillor Milford. And unless somebody raises their hand, we'll take that as a yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Clark. That is unanimous from my reckoning. Moving to item 6, filming in Ventnor and BONCHURCH. This is very exciting for us little people who watch TV all the time, all day. Although I've not really had an interest in the detail of this, but I take it officers and the clerk and the deputy and the assistant clerk have had a lot to do with this. David, do you want to fill us in on this?
I don't think there's anything I need to add, Chair, to be frank. I mean, there will be some problems for residents, and I don't know if I've recorded it, but the production company have delivered a letter to every address in Dudley Road and Devonshire Terrace to explain what they're going to be doing and when. And they have committed to visiting tenants, residents directly nearer to the time. And we've had an indication, for example, from one resident who has already planned to move house on one of the days when Dudley Road is due to be closed. Stephen Parker, who's the production manager we're dealing with, has told her they'll make arrangements to accommodate that. The police have agreed to relocate to Dudley Road car park for the duration rather than use the site outside Salisbury Gardens. So as far as possible, I think people are being informed, and we'll do some more on that with the website and my next week's Clerk's column when things are firmer, because my experience so far is the dates keep changing because the production schedule keeps shifting for one reason or another. You'll note that the whole team responsible for the filming and the production have very good COVID care procedures in place. but I suspect we probably won't take any risks with having close contact with them. So but it all looks good, and the amount of money is encouraging. So yeah, fine. With
Can I
me,
just ask? Sorry, can I just ask one question before I open it, David? Is the filming? I noticed there's only 3 days of actual filming. Is that contingent on weather, or because I take it that there will be some outdoor filming? I don't know if if it's inside Salisbury Garden and everything else.
that filming is almost entirely internal. It's they're
Alright.
using the green room for the whole 3 days.
I was only thinking if
There will be some outside shots, but they'll be unlucky if it rains for 3 days, won't they?
yeah, I'm sure. I was just thinking if it extended that our fees might go up commensurately with the they might have. That was all.
Yes, they're now going to use the Market Street car park as well as Dudley Road, and they've offered extra money for that.
So a nice little windfall for Ventnor Town Council, and if things go according to plan. Okay, members, anything to say or add to this before we move on?
Well, I hope it goes well in order that perhaps Ventnor can be establishing itself as the ultimate venue for unusual films. It's a pity they're on BritBox because that's going to cost me £6 a month to watch it. But apart from that, it's very good.
Surely it'd be worth it just for splitting in, Brian.
Well, it's going to be a 5-part thriller, so you'll get good value for your money, Brian.
Okay, anybody else before we move on? Thank you, members. Moving on to item number 7, the public toilets. Jim?
Yeah, I've been told by the gentleman who's doing the specification of work, it will be completed by this Friday.
The sorry will be completed by Friday? Jim?
The specification will be completed by Friday. This Friday.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I just
Rest
lost the
assured, I'll
last
be
part.
on to on Wednesday. So yeah.
Okay.
yeah, be ready for Friday. So we should all go well. Provided he keeps to his word, we should get it out to tender next week.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't hear all that. Didn't hear all that.
Oh,
No,
sorry.
I-
The document to put it out to tender will be ready this Friday. The specification will be completed this Friday. Not here. No.
Did you get that, Jamie?
Yes, I got that, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Did you have anything you wanted to add or ask about it?
I just can we have sight of it?
Yeah. There's no reason why everyone shouldn't have sight of it.
Yeah, that'd be good.
It will come through as a hard copy and on email.
Yeah. That's
So-
fine.
Fantastic. Yeah, super. Yeah.
I will chase him Wednesday to make sure he's on target.
Just one quick, just for information for members, the meeting between referred to in paragraph 4, C with Councillor Peace never went ahead. The new meeting, never went ahead, although he had said that he would bring up, and it's something the clerk and I would have certainly brought up with him had that meeting gone ahead, but for personal reasons he couldn't make it last Monday. David, are there any further developments and talks with the council as far as the costs and
Meeting was originally planned for 2 Mondays ago, and he cancelled it because of a hospital appointment for his wife, and that's perfectly understandable. Of course, he said he would rearrange, but we haven't had any indication of that, we'll obviously go back to him perhaps after the discussion on the next item.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, who's that? Sorry, that's my phone going off. Somebody tried to come in there, sorry.
I think it was Dillian.
No, I keep hearing strange voices, but it's not me.
Right, okay then.
There is an attendee number 12.
Okay, well, okay. Does anybody else have anything on the public toilet? The specifications are being completed. According to Councillor Too Good, by Friday, each member will then have a chance to go over the specifications. And in any case, we're still waiting for confirmation from Isle of Wight Council about the grievances, stroke concerns we have over the costings and prices of the bays that we're talking about. So that situation has not been rectified to our satisfaction yet.
I'd just like to underline that undermines the viability of the project if the Isle of Wight will not commit to the parking spaces.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we have to have that rectified, Councillor McCauley. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Well, I hope it wouldn't change our mind to actually having that toilet, even if the Isle of Wight Council are intransigent about the sum of money they're trying to charge us. I mean, that would be a great disadvantage to the town, even though we know that justice is on our side. I'd hope that it's not an either or.
Yeah. To that, Councillor Lucas, I'd echo what you say. And in fact, I was at the in the PDSA second-hand shop the other day with my wife. We were just having a look around, and that was a subject of discussion among 2 or 3 of the customers and the lady behind the counter there. And they were new to Ventnor. They were just visiting, and they had come into the shop, and they were quite annoyed about the lack of facilities in the town centre itself. I pointed out about Marlborough Road, but they didn't seem to be very impressed by that at all. So I agree with what you say, Brian. There. Anybody else? Okay, moving on to a very cryptic subject: a better Ventnor. And this is the Council's COVID-19 recovery plan, A Better Way. I'm glad that they've got a recovery plan because not many people do have it. David, would you like to weigh in with this?
Anyone else hear lots of voices? Can anyone else hear a whole load of voices in the background? Because I can't hear anything here. Lots of people.
No, I can hear everything clearly, Delian. Sorry, yeah, I can hear everything clearly.
It's not great. It's not.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gone now. That's okay. Yeah.
Can I kick off with this one, Mr.
Surely,
Mayor?
Brian. Surely.
It's we're obviously the poor relation on the island by the fact that the people in Newport have almost forgotten that we exist. Quite clearly, we've got big problems recovering from COVID. We don't have many shops and businesses compared with Ryde and Sandown, etc. But we mustn't be forgotten. But I think the important thing is us for we to have a plan. There's no point in actually saying, oh yes, they should include us in this recovery plan without us having some idea about how we would intend to assist the particular problems of the people in Ventnor. I mean, you've got a lot of people in the hospitality industry that have lost their jobs. You've got a lot of shops that are struggling. But I feel, need to put something together in order that they can see the degree of problems we've got and the fact that there are possible solutions available. So, I mean, rather than just be angry about the fact that they've not included us, I feel we ought to be a bit more proactive, actually, on this issue. I mean, I see the shops in the town, and they clearly are struggling, but they are also not really, to my mind, taking really inventive steps in order to get over their problem. So I feel that they do need assistance. So I think we need to step forward somehow or other and tell Newport what the problems are and how they possibly could be solved.
Thanks, Councillor Lucas. To that point that you just made, I agree with you. A couple of things I would add to that. Again, when I was in the charity shop, they seemed to be managing, they were allowing 6 people in at a time, and each person had to wear a mask and so on, and they had all the requisite sprays and hand gels there. But then again, in the Cooperative and Tesco's, the 2 biggest stores in the town, which are the 2 busiest shops also, they don't enforce the mask rule at all. The local shops seem to be enforcing it, and the national chain shops don't seem to be. And I have to admit a bit of guilt here, because I went to Tesco's the other day and I completely forgot to bring my mask with me, and I was, I was terrified. And it just so happened that one of the members of the staff came outside the shop and said to, and I said to him about it. He said, "Oh, it doesn't matter." He says, "It doesn't really count in the shop." And I said, "I thought it was legal." So they seem to be confused about this. And also, I went to Newport last week on the bus, and I had forgotten my mask. It was the same day, and I went to pay my fare, and the driver said to me, "Oh, I'm sorry, you don't have your mask on." I said, "No, I'm sorry, but I've got a hanky with me. I'll hold it up to my nose." And he let me on the bus. And the first thing that I heard on the bus after we left was the man on the looped advert coming on to say that thank you for wearing a mask, which is compulsory on Southern Vectors. And I wondered to myself, was that driver taking his job in his hands by allowing me to board the bus without a mask? It seemed to me that he. But then I said to the driver about it. He says, "Well," he says, "you won't see an inspector in any of these buses in any case." He says, "And unless a policeman come onto the bus," which he says, "I can guarantee you never happens." He says, "Certainly in any of the routes that I'm on," he says, "these things are just not being enforced." So whilst I agree with you, Brian, that we should be helping, the time that we did try to help, we were thoroughly slapped in the face by the Isle of Wight Council. Not even a week after the agreements were arrived at, they withdrew them, and I'm talking about the barriers and the spacings on the high street. So I really don't know what we as a town council, we certainly can't help people financially, or we can't help hoteliers or hospitality establishments, which are all doing the best they can. But I really don't know what else we can do. I'd absolutely love it if somebody came up. Jamie.
Chair, you totally surprised me. Brian put forward a point of view, which was that we should be thinking more constructively and positively about how we assist businesses and so on in the high street and so on. Your anecdotal evidence of your personal point of view is not wrong, but it's not. It can't be the total story. I think what Brian was trying to say was that we as a council, we have to react to the conditions that we're in right now, and there are. The businesses in our high street will go bust. They will disappear. What that means for high street, I don't know. I mean, perhaps pedestrianisation is a good thing. I don't know. But Brian's point was that as a council, we have to try and see if we can positively assist businesses and individuals in any way that we can.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, Jamie. Maybe you never picked up what I said. I was agreeing with Brian. What I'm saying is I don't see what practically we can do apart from give advice. We can't help them in a physical or a transition way, or in a practical way. We can advise, but our powers in this are limited because the county council carries out the government's wishes as far as COVID-19 is concerned. That's all I'm trying to say. I would love to help the businesses, but I don't see how we do it. Maybe you have a better idea about how we can do it, but I certainly don't.
I don't have a better idea, but I mean, these are grievous times we're living in, and I think we should try and use all our skills and experiences. Some of us have been to amazing places in our lives, to see if we can't help our town, either the businesses and people. I mean, I think we as councillors, I mean, it's just, even if it's just mentoring businesses or people And I'm not sure what Brian meant. Perhaps I've overstepped the mark.
I don't see why you've overstepped anything. No, you're entitled to your opinion. Anybody else would like to come forward at this stage? Brian, would you like to reply to what you've just heard or not? Sorry.
Well, it wasn't really just a question of coping with COVID, because that's here to stay and it's here with us. It's really what I was thinking about was how you get them to recover after COVID or cope during COVID. I mean, okay, wearing masks, etc., is a sort of a hygiene factor, which some people are attending to or some people aren't. But what I was thinking about is the businesses that don't seem to be very inventive in terms of getting past the problem. They're going all wobble and just shutting down or almost disappearing. Whereas somewhere you go some places and they've been really inventive in terms of how they've done things. And that's really maybe between us all, we have certain bits of experience that we can put forward. I mean, I suggest we all write into the clerk with ideas, and maybe we can distill some factors that might well be common to everybody. I mean, maybe we need to employ a consultant. I mean, a retail consultant even. I mean, I hate doing consultants because they seem to be expensive, but we need to break the mold, I think. Otherwise, a lot of businesses are just going to slide downhill and just give up. And that was the view. So if we all write into email into the clerk with our bright out of the box ideas about how these councils could possibly assist and advise, not necessarily mentor, but that's my idea how we could attend to it.
Okay, anybody else?
Stephen?
Councillor Cockett.
Thank you, Chair. So I've made 3 notes here, and the first one's maybe the easiest one. Ventnor has 4.5% of the Isle of Wight's population. So as and when and if any money is parachuted out of London towards the Isle of Wight Council, we should keep that number in mind. And we should be on the receiving end of our fair share, if not more, considering all the red dots that you see all over those maps and the areas of deprivation that we have. So I think it's good to keep in mind, 4.5%, 5% is of the population we have, and we should be in line for that much of the budget, I believe, as and when money comes, which surely it will. Another 2 things I've heard mentioned a couple of times within the council, with regards to, these aren't COVID specific things. I mean, this is a huge ongoing problem. Nobody has the answers. Nobody can run out and save the businesses, not even Rishi Sunak. But there's 2 things that I think we can do. It's been discussed before that the youth worker could work specifically with the youth to help them get qualifications, the building site qualifications, health and safety qualifications, and so on, which can help them to get their first foot on the ladder. I think that'd be a fantastic initiative, and I'd really like to see that go forward. And I'd love to hear some good results from that. Another suggestion that's come up once or twice in the council is, following on from what Brian mentioned, would be perhaps to get an events person, somebody who can work specifically to try and bring events into the town, and also to try and get some revenue from the park, which is going to be directly under our management very soon. So I would be interested to see us try and firm up on both of those things. That's youth qualifications and the possibility of taking on another member of staff, part-time or full-time, to look to bring events into the town.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something we did talk about previously, Stephen. Councillor Watling.
A couple of things in there. So I think we've got a list of major projects, haven't we, somewhere that gets brought out occasionally. I think that's all contributing other suggestions to that might work with business development. seeing the pros and cons and what it would cost to implement them, going back to the Isle of Wight Council for some of that 4.5% money, I think is a really good idea. So I'm fully supportive of putting some ideas together into a paper. We're reliant on hospitality business, and hospitality businesses aren't innovators. We've talked about that. One of the things that the Isle of Wight Innovation Centre is going to do is a bit of technology adoption amongst hospitality businesses. So saying to them, you know, the story I always trot out is I once walked all the way up to the Smuggler's Haven, ordered 20 quid's worth of food and drink, and was told they didn't have a card reader. So they lost out on 20 quid straight away there. So there are lots of things we can do with our businesses that they just need a bit of a helping hand with. So I think the idea of mentoring or some innovation adoption is a really, really good idea. The other thing I would say is that our new procurement rules are going to give us the ability to tick some social value boxes, and that's using our own budgets and our own procurement for the good of the people of Ventnor. So I think that's a good thing. That's something we should definitely do rather than letting our money go too much further afield. And then my final point was, yes, I fully agree that we should have an events coordinator to bring some business into the town and the park, but over my dead body is that a council member of staff, because the quality of individual you'll get for what we can afford won't be able to do it. And you need to incentivize these people properly. So I'd like to see a private sector body that can make a profit out of this doing it, because then they're correctly incentivized from the get-go. Apologies to all civil servants on the call. I've been one myself. We're very good. You're very good at some things, but the incentives in the public sector are good for other things, and events is one of them. That was it.
All right. Can I say something?
Certainly, Julian.
Right. By accident, Andy went and published something I wrote to him last week. I didn't mean it to be an article, but it was short of news, I suppose. What comes through to me all the time, I mean, I am a professional in at least 3 different other professions than the ones you know me as, and it is perfectly obvious we have got to have a Ventnor identity. We have got to stop people in the town fighting and arguing. We've got to have a cohesive image, and we have to have, as you all said, we've got to have a plan. Now, actually, that particular article was about the, the generation of energy, which of course is one of the things that I am greatly involved in. But that's what we need. We've got to be Ventnor. I mean, if you go to Totnes, for instance, in Devon, there you can see a town that was a massive failure, small town, is now a huge success. I recommend that you go there. I mean, they've managed to get themselves an image, which you have just discussed. Yes, we've got to get a professional in to try and identify what our PowerPoints are, the things that are going to make us look positive, and then go from there. But you're absolutely right. You have to identify someone who knows what they're doing to do this. That's it. Not me, by the way. I'm too busy.
Thank you, Julian. Jamie?
It's just to say that I agree with Paul. I don't think we can afford another salary on our budget for an event organizer. And I also agree with him that I don't think that's the right way to do it. I think we need to try and entice someone from the private sector to help us, and strike the right deal with them, kind of thing. That's my point of view on that one. No more salaries,
Yeah, thanks, David. My answer to that would be it depends on what the return for the salary would be, and how serious the council is about turning Ventnor into an event centre. Witness the film company and various others, witness the Fringe, witness the Arts Festival, and various other things that are coming along. So I wouldn't necessarily, with due respect, Jamie, toss that out the window, although it's something we have to talk about in detail and bring proposals forward for, and debate amongst ourselves about the best way forward. which is why I would again question Councillor Watlin's assertion about privatised initiatives coming in, because you just have to look at Brighton and Blackpool to see two of the biggest in the country, and they're both run by the local authorities very successfully. So, you know, it can be done, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't bring somebody else in, but we have to look at everything. And if councillors have suggestions, then they have to be brought forward in some manner so that we can debate them and so that we can see how to best take them forward for the future. What concerns me about the Better Ventnor thing is reading the minutiae of the reports. It always gets back to the fact that we are the poor cousins here, both as far as the government and not to the same extent Hampshire, because they do acknowledge us, but certainly Ventnor, sorry, not Ventnor, strike that, Isle of Wight Council's attitude towards Ventnor seems to be, as people have said in the past, something that, you know, is something of an afterthought, which, considering one of our councillors is on the is inside the cabinet, you wonder why that might be so. So
I know the answer to that.
Okay.
Ventnor Council has been the best performing council for years under David Bartlett, and that's why they leave us alone.
Yeah.
Because they think that we are totally capable. David, by the way, if you're still here. I hope we are. But part of that bias, I think, Stuart, is that it's not two-sided. You don't think we're like nutters, like, you know, on the south of the island. They think our council is the best performing council in Hampshire, and that in itself might be a kind of strange impediment.
Yeah. I take on point that, and I agree with most of what you say there, Jamie. That I know that. Councillor Logan.
I think we might be getting slightly hooked up on the sort of high street aspect of it there. I tend to agree a lot more with what Councillor Cockett was saying, that we probably need to take a slightly more holistic Ventnor as a whole kind of thing. It's not just about the shops. We need to look at the deprivation. We need to look at the education, and that's why I think the Upper Ventnor projects are very important, because we're then bringing jobs and, you know, income into the town. So, yeah, whilst I generally agree with what you say, but I would look for somebody, if we're looking for somebody to be an events organiser, I think we have to look within the town to have somebody with a vested interest to do it. I wouldn't see it coming within the council itself, but rather than take on a new employee, we'd be looking for the actual town itself to drive this, maybe with the guidance of the council, but not of the council, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I mean, and certainly the kind of thing we're doing to get the training into town, because that's where I work. We can certainly facilitate that. We've got the ways and means to do that. You know? We certainly have to look at the jobs within the town. There's very few jobs in this town outside, you know, the Royal Hotel and Cheetah Marine. You're then starting to struggle slightly. So yeah, I mean, I think we're on the edge of something that could be very, very useful, but I think we have to look at it as a kind of more whole Ventnor aspect, and not just think on, okay, what can we have going in the park and what can we have going in the high street.
Thank you, Councillor Logan. Certainly towards that, I had this outlandish idea years ago when the Salisbury Gardens was a problem. It's not a problem anymore. It's a success story, I hasten to add. But when it was perceived as a problem, my idea was to turn it into a training hotel, because you know, people had to go far and wide to train in hospitality, because I've always said it's a profession and not something you should just drop into because you've got nothing else to do, which seems to be the way a lot of others view it. But you know that's the kind of thing that we need to be looking at, training, and not just in the hospitality industry, but other things. We've got innovative businesses here. We've got Cheetah Marine. We've got the fish. We've got Simon doing his salts and various other bits and pieces of food. So we do have a lot going for us here in Ventnor. And so I understand why people would ask that the council takes a more proactive view in that. But to bring this together, I don't think we're going to agree that amongst us tonight that on a recommendation along the terms of what's written here, because it's going to take some more input, and the clerk's going to have to then come forward with the formal words to satisfy us that before it's forwarded to the Isle of Wight Council with our views. So, do you have any views on that? How we formulate the council's view in response to the Isle of Wight Council, because that's what we're asked to do here.
We've had some very clever ideas around the table tonight. I suggest that we put them in very brief terms, précis terms, to David, so that he can see whether there's any great consensus amongst the council, and formulate a report based upon what appears to be the general view coming from the councillors. Otherwise, they're all going to be independent views and not brought together, aren't they?
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. Just David,
Yeah, I agree with that.
Sorry, Jamie. Yeah, David stopped blushing now after Jamie's damning him with praise earlier on. So, David, yeah, obviously the majority of this work is going to fall to your hands, because you have to formulate the report with the support of town council. So, what do you have to say in response?
Thank you, Chair. Just a number of things, but I mean the discussion has been helpful in the emphasis on what we can do ourselves. My message to you is that we need to do all of those things, and I value Brian's suggestion that anybody who's got any other thoughts on the matter or any other ideas shares them with me, and I'll put something together along those lines. But my message to you is that we do not have the resources to change this situation significantly. Councillor Cockett's indication of the 4.5% is a sound idea in my view, except that it's not enough. The only way that the areas of the island which are in deprivation have any chance of moving and changing the trend that you see in that report that I've given you, and that's a trend that you've seen before when I first reported on the Index of Multiple Deprivation 2019. The only hope of changing that trend, and I speak from 20 years experience of working, well, 10 of that rather, in a borough much more deprived than anything on the island. The only way of reversing that trend is by resources being differentially committed to those areas which need it most. 4.5% will be wonderful, because at present we have nothing. And in fact, as I've indicated in the report, the Isle of Wight Council is taking money out of Ventnor on a huge scale as far as Ventnor is concerned. The services we've taken on are costing £60 a year to every council tax paying person on the island. And it's not acceptable, particularly given, as I say, that this trend is not going to change unless the Isle of Wight Council comes to terms with what regeneration means. It's doing a good job in Newport, I think, as much as it can with the resources available. It's doing a good job in Ryde too, with the resources it's got available. It's doing a sort of job in Sandown with the rebuilding of those dreadful toilet block outside the pier. But it's doing nothing here, as the mayor has commented several times. Ventnor is the poor relation. And sorry, but I have to take exception to Jamie McCauley's point that this is because you're a very good council. When I first came to Ventnor in 2010, it was not a good council, but it was still the poor relation of the Isle of Wight Council. Ventnor is the forgotten place when resources are being discussed and the share of resources, and that's got to change. And you, because I can't bring any more pressure to bear than I can through conversations with officers, you have to bring the Isle of Wight Council's political leadership to the table with you, where these discussions can be made face to face. As was observed by Councillor Logan, this is not about just about COVID, and it certainly isn't only about the high street, though that's an important element. Some of them might take unkindly to the observation that they don't take any initiative themselves forward, because I recall that when a group of traders tried very recently to make some adjustments to the high street to increase footfall, they were not only up against some other traders who, in my view, were the ones, some of them, who were successful in getting the cancellation of the proposal to apply Newport-style amendments, arrangements to the high street being cancelled. But the town council itself, you, if I remember the informal conversation meeting we had about that proposal, were not in favour of it either, or certainly not strongly supportive of it, and it disappeared. But on its own, as everybody said, it's not about the high street, it's not about COVID either. The reality is, nationally, that COVID affects the already most deprived areas. And the underlying issue you face, and I face, and my colleagues face, is that Ventnor is in the 10% most deprived nationally, as far as its central area is concerned, and within the 20% most deprived nationally, as far as Upper Ventnor is concerned. We can't change that. We should do what we can, and we are. The work that's being done in supporting vulnerable residents is amazing. The work that's being done through the council's support of the food bank and baby box is wonderful. But this is about symptoms, not causes, and we need increasingly to turn our attention, your attention, to causes, and those are embedded, deep, very difficult to change and to move in the opposite direction. So we have a real problem unless the Isle of Wight Council start working with us, with you. I don't see much hope for things changing other than continuing to do what we can with the symptoms. And we will do some of that. We're already looking at the project that's been going for years that Jason started, networking board, with advice sessions in the library. Those have stopped because the library is not accessible for the extra library activities. But I'd like to have that discussion with Jason and with Jan Bennett and with Dave Logan, who knows a lot about providing support for tenants, for residents and tenants in the town. So we will continue to do what we can, certainly follow up on the suggestions that have come from this meeting. But you do need to be clear, it won't be enough. And that's why, although I think the mayor is right when he says you can't agree the first part of the recommendation in the paper, I think it would make sense to agree the second if you do nothing else. And I'd like you to do a lot more. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David, for that very concise explanation. And I have to agree with you. I think it goes back to something that Jamie said a few meetings ago quite firmly. You know, how do we make our representatives at county council level listen to us and or even engage with us and take things forward? One sort of has been trying, and the other one just doesn't do anything to engage with us at all. And as a clerk says, this is what we're up against. It doesn't matter how well-meaning we are, unless we have the support at county council level. I feel, in any case, we're sort of banging our heads against a brick wall as far as things goes. And unless we have more powers delegated to us, which would not come from Isle of Wight Council, would have to come from government. And it goes to what we're going to talk about next, the council tax decisions, because here we're at the tip of the iceberg, and then we've got the invoices which will be coming this time next year for the COVID pandemic, which the same people will be expected, I've no doubt, to pay for. So, you know, that's all coming down the track as well. So, does anybody else, before we move to the recommendation, like to add anything to that?
Well,
Jamie?
I'd just like to thank David for a lengthy and valuable input, really, and an honest one. You know, and you, Chair, summed it up perfectly. Like, what do we do about our lack of influence on the Isle of Wight County Council? So that's just my last comment on that piece.
Thanks, Jamie. So can we go to the recommendation then? As the clerk has suggested, I think we should concentrate on item 2, ask the county councils to work with the town council. This ask, can we not demand? I mean, can we not? We can demand, really, because they won't do it. We've tried before. We can ask again, but I think, as the clerk has alluded to, we know what the answer is going to be, despite what we say. We can only. I mean, I've had meetings, and certainly David has, and others amongst you, Colin has, with the leader, the deputy leader, and which we've come away optimistic and thought we were getting places. But here we are 2-3 years on, and where have we got? You know, look at the harbour, so-called, and everything else that we thought we were reaching agreement about. We've reached agreement on nothing so far. It really is very, very depressing. So I can only say, Clark, that once again, we approached the leadership of the council via our 2 county councillors, expressing the feelings of Ventnor Town Council in the strongest possible terms, and asking for meaningful discussions about the way forward. And do we can we now make this public? Can we now try and get the local press on board and say, you know, up with this we will put, to paraphrase somebody else's famous remark a few years ago. I don't know what our views on this are. Stephen.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't quite hear your last comment. You mentioned about local press. Can you say again, please?
Yeah, well, we did talk about this before. I think Jamie and Colin have both said, and others. You know, why don't we try and involve the press in what we're trying to do here, and through them ask why Ventnor Town Council is not getting any response from Isle of Wight Council, and try and do it that way, because we've tried every other avenue. We've tried the formal route via town council. We've tried officer to officer. We've tried councillor to councillor. We've tried leader to leader. None of which seem to have worked so far. That's just a suggestion from me.
Then, Mr. Mayor, I do believe that would be over to you. Am I right in saying so? I would not be, on a personal note, I would not be opposed to see a press release go, which summarises the points that we've expressed here for the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 12 months, and if that was coming from the mayor, that would be correct, no?
Yeah, I have no compunction about that, Stephen. Thank you. I don't mind taking the lead in this. In fact, I'll do it. You know, if people don't mind, I'll start it tomorrow by talking to my contacts. But I won't tell you what I'll say to them, but I'll in advance. But certainly. So can we?
Sorry, may I make one more point as well? So about the other things that we've discussed in loose terms here. I mean, I'm in complete agreement with David about the problems we have with the Isle of Wight Council. I read every line of the report, and unfortunately, it's a bit like reading the same things over and over again, isn't it? I mean, so we do need to continue pushing on that. Of course, we know that the Isle of Wight Council would turn around and say, well, we have the same problem with Westminster. And I'm sure they do have. We know what the problem is here. It's austerity, and it's a centralised government that we cannot affect. The Isle of Wight Council can't affect it, and Ventnor can't affect it. But I would like to see us try and firm up on some of the loose ideas that we've kicked around in the meeting this evening. So for my part, I will be sending an email to colleagues here, and we'll see if in a month or two's time we can actually make some resolutions on some of the things that we've discussed, rather than just bouncing them around as ideas again. Okay.
Thanks, Stephen.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Sorry,
do we actually believe that we are like second cousins? Like we're being treated worse than everybody else? Is that actually the case?
Well, yeah.
Oh, well, I think it's self-evident.
Okay.
Well, that's my view. But and I don't know if anybody from Isle of Wight Council will be watching this meeting tonight.
Well, we're Ventnor Town Council. We're sitting talking tonight. I think we should tell the Town Council that we feel that we're hard done by. I realize it's a difficult letter to write. Perhaps it needs a bit of advice. But it depends on how we want to initiate that. We want to initiate a process with them where we're set up. If I'm wrong, stop me.
Thank you. I don't see any dissent around the table, David. Now, then, if you can initiate correspondence with the county councillors with the views of the council in respect of the recommendation.
Did you hear my last comment? Which was that if we are fed up, I mean, are we fed up? That's an open question to all councillors.
Sorry, you confused me. If you're fed up, are you fed up? Sorry, just clarify that for me.
Did anyone else feel that question?
There's an interference on this.
Okay.
Colin, please hand up.
Yeah. So, could we be really clear on the data that we're using to say that we are underfunded by the Isle of Wight Council? Is there a per capita spend number somewhere, or something related to the LSOA data or something? I mean, I'm really happy to go into bat with the Isle of Wight Council, but I want to do that from a place where we have a data rational argument rather than a lot of people feeling a lot of things. That's just my perspective on it. I'm sure David has that information, if not at his fingertips, then a few mouse clicks away.
Yeah, I'm sure he has.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're not satisfied, are we? That's the bottom line. It isn't enough. And then we can go from there. No?
The frustrating thing is, Julian, that they know that already. David.
Chair, I made the point in the paper, which I think is maybe worth just returning to briefly, which is that we're not actually asking for large sums of money. What we're asking for is an enabling role. We've got ideas, as Colin said earlier, we've got 10 major projects. 4 of them are stymied because the Isle of Wight Council either won't respond to them or won't respond to them positively. But it doesn't cost them any money. I mean, all I've asked them for on your behalf over the last 2 years is 10 grand. We're not looking to exhaust their funds. It just amazes me that when they sold Market Street, got 80k for it, they then want to charge us 5,900. It's a scandal. It's not just wrong; it's scandalous.
I think part of the answer to Councillor Watling's point
won't cost them any money. They just need to get on with it. so we're not going with a begging bowl. We're saying we've got lots of ideas, we've got lots of projects. Let us get on with it with your support, please.
I think what we really need here is agreement from Isle of Wight Council to support us along the lines of the details that you set out in paragraph 5 in your paper, David, which is to us fairly straightforward and fairly easy. If the leader and deputy leader were to say, in principle, and put it in writing, by the way, in principle, we agree to this, subject to whatever caveats they might want to put, but at least we would know where we were then. Okay, everybody. Can we wrap that up along those lines?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much. David, is there anything before we move on? Thank you. Local council tax support scheme consultation, which made me cry really nearly when I read this. Not that I didn't know what was in it already, but it's just, and I it's a commendation. We ought to tell them where to put it really. And this is just the tip of the iceberg as far as I can see coming down the pipe. And as usual, it's the people who can't pay that are being expected to pay. I won't go through the figures, you've all seen them for yourself. Who would like to speak here? Councillor Cockett.
Yes, as sure as night follows day, it comes to that time of year again, and there's going to be council tax is going to go up and services are going to be cut and extra savings are going to be made. We know that. So thank you very much for the recommendation. I have no problem at all following that.
Councillor Milford.
Obviously, I'm acutely aware of the need for the Isle of Wight Council to save £3.5 million. That all isn't very true. This seems to be hitting the lowest incomes on the island in order to contribute to that. I'm not sure I've got any alternative suggestions, but anything that doesn't hit the lowest paid and the lowest income bands on the island, I think we should definitely support you in this recommendation and look for alternative savings elsewhere from those who could perhaps more afford to make them, but not from these groups.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Logan.
Yeah, I can only just reaffirm what Councillors Cockett and Milford has said. What really worries me with this and the situation you're in, that we are at the tip of the iceberg. This is, I think, just your starter for 10, if I'm being honest. And I think at this point, as we have to say no, and we have to say no firmly and in quite straightforward terms. To say it's not acceptable to be hitting the poorest and most vulnerable because of our budget. I accept the fact that the COVID deficits due to COVID are not of the Isle of Wight Council's making, but this is not the target they should be going for, and I, in the strongest terms, will support this.
Thanks, Councillor Logan. Anybody else? Councillor Watling.
I love politics. That was fantastic. 20 minutes on the need for more public money to be spent in Ventnor, and now let's save some money and we won't have any of that. That's fine. I do have a suggestion, which is differential council tax for second homes. Other councils are doing that around the country. Why isn't the Isle of Wight doing that? That would raise an awful lot of money. So I totally agree. We shouldn't be hitting the least well off. We should be doing it the other way around. And that's my suggestion, differential council tax for second homes.
Thank you, Colin. And I would agree with that sentiment. Anybody else?
Yeah, I agree too.
Thank you, Julian.
Yeah.
I don't know who attendee 12 is, but it keeps Jamie. It keeps flashing at me, but nothing happens. I don't know.
Hey, Stuart, I'm not doing it on purpose.
No, I don't suppose you are, David. Just there's a blank space where your lovely face used to be.
I've got a Samsung tablet. That's what I'm working on.
All right. Okay. Okay.
It seems to work. But, yeah. I've had loads of flashing lights now. Yeah.
It's a matter of interest, colleagues. Does anybody have anything to speak to about Councillor Watley's suggestion about the differential for second homes? Councillor Milford.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second that as a proposal. I'll make that a bullet point recommendation that we asked the Isle of Wight Council to seek to make savings in all other areas, such as increasing the tax on second homes.
Thank you. So let's be clear here. Councillor Walton, you're putting that forward as an amendment to the recommendation, correct?
If that's the process, that's the process. Yeah, I think it's a good
Thank
idea.
you. And Councillor Milford is seconding that. Can I take it there are no dissenting voices to that before we go back to Steve? That's kind. David, have you made a note of that?
Yep, I have.
Thank you. Councillor Cockett. Oh, sorry, Stephen, I thought your hand was waving at me. Yeah.
No, I normally have something to say on second homes, don't I? But not this evening. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Thank you
My
very
work
much.
has been done.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. And as I think Councillors Logan and Watling both said, and I said, I think it's only the tip of the iceberg coming down. God help us in 2021 if you're in the lowest decile. I really don't know what. Planning feature consultation. Here's my paperwork for this. I don't know if any of you saw Captain Bob Seeley's performance in Parliament the other day, speaking about the housing bill, which I saw, which is linked to this a bit because it's about housing. And I have to say how impressed I was by Bob Seeley's contribution as far as this goes. He really had a go at the government, and he had big guns supporting him from Theresa May downwards. So I think the government's in a bit of trouble over this going forward. But we're talking now about the island and its particular problems with regard to that. Who would like to speak to this?
Yeah, can I chip in? As I don't share Bob Seeley's politics, but he did an excellent job on behalf of the argument which a lot of us want to propose. But I do think he's pushing at an open door, really. I can't think of many members of Parliament of any colour that would be so welcoming a whole lot of extra houses based upon this forced set of anagrams, or they're not anagrams, but forced sort of formula for calculating. And so I think the government are going to have a big problem in terms of objections coming from all their people. Going back to what Colm said earlier, one of the things that Colm did say earlier on, was this second homes aspect. And in the little paper that I put forward, one of the things I didn't put in, but second homes, people who have second homes aren't going to just suddenly give them up because council tax goes up 2 or 3 times. They're going to either stick with it and moan, or they'll sell them. And if they sell them, it's more housing stock going into the island, which is really what we want. So it's a circular benefit, money for the council or houses for the people. So there's all sorts of formulas that we can put in place, which are a bit more inventive than just chucking extra houses on the island.
Yeah. Well, there are already several developments in the island with planning permission, and there's not a brick being laid on them. They're just land banking them, which is another source of grave irritation. Anybody else like to come in on this? Ian, sorry, yeah, you're at the bottom left-hand side.
Yeah, attendee 5 or whatever I am.
Yeah, attendee 5.
Yeah, I agree with Brian's comments on the housing, and particularly on the second homes. I think that's a point we could very usefully make. The one area I think the paper perhaps didn't fully bring out was the concerns around the loss of local decision-making in the government's proposals, and particularly an individual householder who has something unacceptable next door. At the moment, they can object, and that gets the council to at least look at the issue, whether it's overlooking or unsightly development or whatever. And I think the Isle of Wight councils and Bob Seeley's opposition to the government's proposals have majored very much on the housing target aspect, which is concerning for the island, and perhaps haven't really brought out fully the concerns across the country that I think many MPs will have, many local councils will have, about how particularly, I mean, essentially of these three areas, the growth or development areas or whatever they're called, people can do more or less what they like. I mean, that's a big change from where we are currently. And it might be worth saying a bit more about that in our response.
Yeah, good point.
Anybody else? Well, has everybody read the attached response to the consultation? And my reason for saying that is to ask, Ian has just said that something might be added, but does anybody else have something which they feel strongly might be added to or subtracted from it? Brian?
Yes, I think that ought to be added, because I'd be very interested to know what our planners think, because they're going to be really chopped in half, basically, in terms of their power. I think that they, on behalf of the people on the island, know really what is proper control, and they're going to lose a lot of that control. And I think, you know, they ought to be responding as a body to these measures as well.
Yeah.
But I agree. The planners mustn't lose overall control on the minutiae of planning.
Yeah, Brian is right. Yeah, I mean, Brian is right on that. And I think what is missed, I think, is that a lot of the way the planning process works is behind the scenes. You know, applicants will contact the council. Maybe they'll be thinking of something that isn't acceptable, and it will get amended before it becomes an application. So it's not just about refusals. It's about the whole way the planning process steers most responsible householders and developers into coming up with proposals that are going to get agreed. And if you cut all that away, then as Brian says, the planners will lose influence in terms of particularly things like conservation areas and building standards. Councillors will be cut out of the process, and individual householders will lose their right to object to something that affects them quite significantly, even if it doesn't affect anyone else.
Okay, yeah. Councillor, do you have a problem what's to hand, or would you like time to think about it and then circulate members, and then we can ask the clerk to include it?
I don't, but I can happily look at it and send something round.
I don't think any members will dissent from that.
That's good.
At this stage. Thank you. So, subject to Ian's amendment, which we agreed in advance about, David?
We've got time. Everybody knows the deadline date, 29th of October. So,
yeah, lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Standing orders. That's a famous pub in Edinburgh, just in case anybody doesn't know. But, I don't know why I thought about that, but I did.
yes, what I've done, as you will see from the paper, is to have discussions with you and with Councillor Watling and the amendments as per the previous town council meetings suggestions, and they've been incorporated, and I've attached the proposed final version, hopefully, of that section of the standing orders, because I think we're all agreed. Well, the three of us have agreed, and I don't mean everybody else yet.
Thank you, Councillor Watling, do you want to speak to this?
Just to say that I'm absolutely fine with it, with the revised words. Thanks for all the councillors' patience while we got through this rather boring bit of business.
It was far from boring, far from boring. Essential bedtime reading. Anybody else like to speak to this? Okay. Could attendee 12 keeps flashing at me. Can we have a proposal, Councillor Watling?
I'll propose that.
Sorry,
A seconder, please.
I'd like to second that, please.
Councillor Lucas, thank you. No dissension. That's carried. Thank you very much. And to the clerk's report, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've just been meditating on something that Councillor Macaulay said earlier on. if he's right about the assumption that the Isle of Wight Council is ignoring us because we're too good, perhaps I should just start making life difficult for you and sending wrong messages to the wrong people and generally doing it badly. But I doubt that will be supported. I hope it wouldn't be supported. On the report for the week, for the past month, St Catherine's College, positive meetings. Delighted to stay with the project officer. Some of you will remember she came with the acting principal to the council meeting in 2018 when the college was first proposed. And she's always been helpful, and so the news is good. The community shed can use the tunnel for wheelchair access to the shed, and the electricity supply is no longer in question. So staff meeting, we have these from time to time, of course, and the office is now formally open from the 1st of October. Alison and Morgan between them are providing the cover, but only one of them at a time. I'm currently banned from the office because there was an announcement today that the average age for deaths from COVID in the UK is 82.4, and that's far too close to where I'm at for comfort, so I'm not going to be in the office except occasionally. And 10 years on, Alison, sorry, Ali, for embarrassing you, but I just had to say that this needs to be acknowledged because the council would not have the reputation that Jamie rightly recognised for it without you. And I'm incredibly grateful for the experience of working with you for so long, and hopefully it will continue. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, David.
Seasonal services, just to record that the putting green closed at the end of September, as did Ventnor Park toilets, although the latter will reopen for the school half term and any other significant events that come along. The paddling pool is arranged for closure on the 31st of October. Risk assessments, Nick Cox has now completed those for the offices of the green room and the community shed, community porta cabin. So we're ready to go with that. The green room, I've just noted, is being used by Citizens Advice already, and Dave Logan in his work role is going to come back to providing the sessions that he's conventionally provided so well. Public service space protection orders, the council's contribution to the response was not adopted, sorry. So the arrangements for Ventnor Beach are as they were, although it will now be covered, underwritten by a public space protection order. Food Bank, David George is producing as utility films a short film for Food Bank. He and Tony McCarthy met with the Food Bank group on Thursday of last week. Annual governance and accountability return, my favourite document of the year. Finally, returned by the auditors, and they've signed off the accounts without qualification, and that will go public in due course. Working groups, let's just record the dates of their recent meetings. And that's it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much for our members for the contribution. I'd just like to reiterate your thanks to Alison for all the work that she's done, and a very astute appointment at the time as PA, leading to where we are today. Thank you very much, Alison. I certainly, during my term as Mayor, have very much enjoyed all the advice that you've given me and the help that you've given me while I've been a member of the council. Thanks for that. Members, anything to ask the clerk? No?
Yeah,
Sorry, Councillor Bond.
thank you. 10D5 again. This is the report that mentions that the public space protection orders, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I haven't got it in front of me. I thought it was. I thought I did see it in there. Just to flag that, if you remember when we discussed this as a council, we made representations that the asking the Isle of Wight Council to look at the possibility of relaxing some of the dog bans on beaches in future years. And the consultation that the Isle of Wight Council carried out had about 250 individual responses on this item, many of which were making similar points, all from individuals across the island. And I had a chat with Gary before the meeting, and what he has committed to, and he said this at the Cabinet meeting on Thursday, is that although the orders have been introduced as proposed now because they wanted to get them done, he and his Cabinet colleague over the winter will look at the possibility of consulting on revised dog beach bans, and will consult parish and town councils as part of that. So hopefully that's good news, and we should be hearing from them if he manages to deliver that over the winter period.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, I've been down on the beach every day this week, and it's been, not inundated, but just that everybody's down there with the dogs, all very well behaved and all having a whale of a time down there, and not one of them causing a nuisance at all. Would any other colleagues like to intervene at this point?
That's
a too good.
Yeah, I would do. Extend it and alter it in any way would be terrible. Okay, we've got a few good dog owners, but we've got a lot of bad ones too. And when we've been down the seafront for the last 7 months living, you've got to see it to believe it. Even now, what the people walk along the beach, let their dogs loose. The dog does his business, and they never turn around and pick it up. I just think the sooner dogs are shoved off the beach straight away, the better. It is. And the same goes out the park. We've got dog walks at the park and not keeping their dogs on leads. The dog poo out there is a disgrace. I think we've got a lot to talk about dog owners on this Isle of Wight, personally. I just think.
Talking like a true cat lover, Jim.
Pardon? I am a dog lover.
Cat lover. I know you are. So am I, but I'm a dog lover as well. And you and I want to agree to disagree over that.
I just think it's a disgrace.
Well, the biggest danger on beaches is broken glass, and the second biggest danger is bits of sharp metal like bottle tops. So maybe if we ban people as well, then the beaches would be really safe.
No, I disagree.
And
the biggest dog problem is dog poo on the beach, dog poo in the park. I'm sorry to say, but dog owners need training before the dogs. That's my opinion. You've got to see it to believe it.
All I've got to say to him is you must go to a different part, a different beach from the ones I go to every day. But there you go. We'll agree.
We've been looking over it for 7 months to see what happens. I've got a bird's eye view down there. You can't do that.
I know you have. Jamie.
Never mind. We won't take that any further. Thank you. Oh.
Jamie. Jamie.
I'd just like to say in response to that it's quite clear we've got much bigger problems than dogs shitting. We've got bigger problems that have got to be sorted, and they're moving quickly. That's the other thing. This coronavirus thing is moving quickly. We don't, as a council, move very quickly. We know this, all of us. But this stuff is moving like so fast. Are we sure we're dealing with it appropriately?
Not on about that. We're about dogs.
Yeah, well, we've covered the COVID-19 thing and the report about the dogs being issued. Anybody else? Delian, you're covering your face.
Well, I've only heard 50% of what went on tonight because you appear to be surrounded by gremlins in the back.
Sorry.
No, I just see the turbine working offshore, and I look forward to seeing Drax's windmills on the horizon. That's what I want.
Thank you. Stephen.
Actually, if I may, is the expectation that this will be the last time we see the word St. Catherine's and electricity on an agenda? Is that a closed matter now?
I think it is a closed matter. Yeah, I think that's been resolved. David?
I believe so, Chair. Yes.
Yeah, it has been resolved. They've agreed that the electricity supply will remain in situ and there is no new supply required.
I almost quote Linda, who said that's not an issue.
Just wanted to be
I
sure
didn't
about
ask
that.
her to go
It was quite the
I didn't
problem.
go into any more detail with her about that, but I was very happy to accept that assurance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no need for any more detail. Yeah.
No, it was a problem, but it is a problem no more, which is the kind of problem we like. Okay, Morgan, I'm assuming that there are still no members of the public wanting to make a contribution. Thank you. In which case, thank you very much, everybody, for your attendance, and see you next time. Thank you.